Hi, welcome to TYA Talk. I am David Strickel, creator of the TYA Mindset Practice, and I'm going to talk today about trusting your abundance, which is what TYA stands for, TYA. But I'm not going to talk about trusting your abundance. I'm going to talk about how much time are you spending questioning other people's abundance? How much are you trusting your fellow humans' abundance? Now, of course, when we say abundance, we're not just talking about money and material things. We're talking about whatever it is that you want to experience. That's how we label abundance. The things that you want to experience, the high vibrational things that you appreciate deeply automatically, that you are wanting to be, do, and have while you're physically manifested. And one of the tools of the matrix is this concept that we need to be our fellow humans keeper, so to speak, that we need to really be worrying about our neighbor. Now, there's nothing wrong with caring about your neighbor. There's nothing wrong about community or any of those things. And if you understand how vibration works, when you are in a high vibrational state of appreciation of all that is, that you are in that high vibration receiving mode of your version of abundance. And sometimes it's easier to get ourselves there and appreciate what we're experiencing and really being focused on our own personal journey. But the Matrix teaches us that we really have to worry about everybody else as well, that we really need to be concerned about the poor, and we need to really be concerned about the inequity of the commerce system that we have and all of these things. I just want to talk about what is the vibration, the underlying vibration of that concern. Is it just genuine concern for your fellow humans? I think that's a pretty high vibration. There's nothing wrong with that. But when we get into the demonization of, oh, that's so not fair. Oh, they shouldn't be experiencing that. Oh, the people at the top of the abundance pyramid are greedy and evil and they're hoarding all the money and they're harming everybody else. When we're in that vibration, we are contributing to exactly what we are complaining about because we're giving it power, we're giving it life. Just the way when you think that you're a victim, you're going to receive more experiences that will place you in the victim vibration and thus place you in a victim scenario. And if you're following our teachings, you probably already get that part of it. I think sometimes it's harder to understand that when you apply it to other people because we are taught to be compassionate and empathetic. But is your compassion and empathy rooted in a vibration of appreciation of exactly where they are, the way that source guides us to be about ourselves? Or are you demonizing or judging in some way their experience, anyone's experience, as should not be? Because you're giving life then to that thing that you think should not be. You are contributing to it and you're drawing it into your experience. Oh, that's so unfair. Oh, that's so not right. What I found for myself is the more I did my inner work of detuning transgressors and coming to appreciate all that is about me, I found myself naturally projecting that out. I was then able to appreciate the experience of others, regardless of what it looked like, regardless of how the matrix teaches us to judge it. And I found myself just naturally not judging other people's suffering as harshly as I once did. But I don't want to assume that that's automatic for everyone. So I want to address it here. This is a good forum to have this sort of casual conversation. So comment on this if you're not clear about what I'm talking about, or if you're struggling with this a little bit. If you can really be at peace with all of the suffering that you've encountered, but then when you view the suffering of others, especially those that you care about, are you still judging that? Are you judging it as should not be? Are you labeling it as this is something I don't want them to experience? But if you listen to the stream's teachings, the stream is all about our suffering creates an opportunity for us to expand. In fact, we expand in our suffering no matter what, because the suffering experience in and of itself is an experience of expansion of consciousness. Think about it like this. Even if you haven't healed, even if you feel like you haven't grown because you were taken advantage of, mistreated in some way, and you're continuing to repeat that, demonizing this should not be type story over and over again, you still at least now know what it's like to have had that experience. And if you take the judgment away from it, then you can see that, okay, now I know what it's like to have been in a relationship where I was cheated on, or where I was cheated in business, or where I was treated unfairly at work, or where I was abused in some way. If nothing else, if you can't find any ounce of appreciation, and I certainly understand that. I certainly understand if you've been treated poorly and if you've gone far down that vibrational path to where you're treated poorly on a regular basis. It seems like, and I know it's just an illusion, but that illusion is there that it's going to be very, very difficult for you to find anything to appreciate about that stuff, especially the more extreme circumstances. So instead of trying to reach for, how did this serve me? Start with, I appreciate the fact that I've had that experience. I now know what it's like. And if I take the whole victim, vibration out of it, think about how easy it is just to appreciate the fact that I survived it. I had that experience. I had my home destroyed. I had my job go away. My business completely collapsed. My relationship collapsed. Maybe my partner, passed on much earlier than I was anticipating, and suddenly I found myself alone again. I know what that's like now. I've had the experience. And if I remove that should not be bumper sticker from the experience, I can actually appreciate that I had the experience, even if the only thing I can begin to appreciate is that I survived it. That's a step up the spiral, a step in the direction that you probably want to go. So start there and understand that when we teach ourselves to just appreciate the fact that we had the experience, that gets that positive momentum going. And then pretty soon we can start appreciating a little more and a little more and a little more until we get above neutral on that vibrational spiral where source is fully engaged. Then we will start to gain clarity on how that served our expansion in some way. And then ultimately in that journey, we will have full-blown authentic appreciation of it. So that's our own healing journey of our transgressor experiences. So if you are practicing that, or you're beginning to practice that, congratulations, you're in the 1% of humanity that's practicing that. But then I'm just pulling that number out of the sky, obviously. But still, most of humanity is not there. I think we all know that. But if you are traveling in that space and you're raising your vibration to that source level of appreciation of all things, then the next phase for you is, how do I feel about the suffering of others? Can I appreciate their suffering even while they're in the throes of it? And don't try to falsely place yourself somewhere where you're just not, you're just not there yet. This is about just creating the, sorry about that, creating the concept in your mind of what that could look like as a practice before you start applying it to actual people, circumstances, and events. It's probably more difficult. When you are reading about or hearing about someone else's suffering, don't try to rush yourself into appreciation of it inauthentically. But as a practice, we call this vibrational. Oh my gosh, I have so many terms now. It escapes me for a moment. It's not vibrational time stamping. It's creating a vibrational note. So you're creating a new note that didn't exist before. That's what we refer to as a vibrational note. You are creating something brand new for yourself out of thin air, literally. And you're going to create a vibrational note where you go into an exercise and appreciate things that you have spent a lifetime demonizing. And maybe it's not even a real scenario. You're going to create a scenario because if you create it in your mind, the healing of it will be so much easier. So create a scenario, and you know how far you can go out with this. Don't start with the worst of the worst. We see this all the time. When I go someplace in a public forum like TikTok, and I talk about appreciation of all things, people see that, they get triggered, and immediately, what about the homeless veterans living outside? Somebody said that the other day, the homeless veteran living outside my building. Well, why are you racing there? That's your ego just wanting to shut that concept down because it doesn't want any part of allowing that source perspective in. If your ego does not have to be at war with source, but our matrix that we're operating in absolutely creates this sort of battlefield between ego and source. So when you're triggered and you're racing to the most extreme example, what about the Holocaust? What about cancer? What about mass shootings? What about pedophilia, all of these things? Don't start there. You are sabotaging yourself if you try to start at the most extreme things when you're trying to apply a practice of appreciation. Start with things that are smaller, or start with things that are completely made up by you, and imagine yourself not celebrating it, but viewing it from the higher perspective of source, which is appreciation of all things. And then start that practice. You don't necessarily have to wait to do all of this detuning work to have this epiphany that when you apply it inwardly, you're automatically going to apply it outwardly. And that has been my experience for sure. But we might want to do some exercises to ensure that that's part of our journey in this practice. Because inevitably, just like when you're judging things externally all the time, you're a very judgmental person. What do you end up doing? You end up turning that judgment inward. Because if you're that critical of everyone around you, you're ultimately then going to be that critical of you, because that becomes your vibration. Well, we're going to flip that. So if you are that forgiving and appreciative of everything that's going on within you, then you ultimately will turn that outward. You just will naturally. But you don't have to wait for that to just magically happen. We have an exercise, a practice, or a tool rather, that will allow you to do that. The tool of this vibration, creating this vibrational note, is all about sitting with something and allowing yourself to evolve to a higher perspective of thought on it. So give vibrational notes a try, and let me know in the comments how this is going for you. I'd like to hear from you, just your general feedback about how your practice is going. And this is a great forum. Those of you that are choosing to subscribe here and have this sort of private inner world of TYA, this is a great place to discuss this. So type in the comments and let me know where you are in this practice, how you feel about it, if there are things that you're still not understanding, if it doesn't make sense, or if it just sounds too insane and outlandish, where you need to start. I think a good place, though, is with the vibrational note. Thanks so much for watching.